Woo, good morning, everybody. Beautiful people. It is Friday, the second hour of LoveBabz, LoveTalk. We've worked out all the technical issues just in time so that I can have my guest, visual activist, Russell Frederick. Now, I know about Russell Frederick because Wendy Rawlins posted it up on LinkedIn. I think he was doing something at Yale or coming to Yale or speaking at Yale or doing something. And she put it out there and she thought I would be interested in talking to him. And she was absolutely right. Russell Frederick has been a photographer and visual activist for more than 25 years. He is also an educator, curator, producer, and consultant. Russell is known widely for his 20 plus years a documentation of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. Frederick has photographed such notables as President Barack Obama, fashion icon Dapper Dan, actors Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, singers D'Angelo, Lauryn Hill, and many, many more. He has lectured at NYU, the School of Visual Arts, the International Center of Photography, Columbia University, the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, and many other fine institutions. He has taught photography workshops sponsored by the United Nations Educational Science Cultural Organization in Ethiopia and South Sudan. His work has been published in the Washington Post, the New York Times, Numero Berlin, the Daily Beast, the Undefeated, Slate, and many others. In addition to these achievements, Russell has exhibited his artwork vastly in the United States, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, Brooklyn, all the places. He's been all the places. So what brings you to this part of the world? And tell me a little bit about what inspires you to be a visual activist.
Hey, good morning, Babz.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for having me on. Here it is. What inspires me to be a visual activist is really there is a need really for change, and it's really to raise awareness about who we are visually and to change these destructive visual narratives that have shaped the way the world has seen Black and Brown people through photography, film, as well as just television. So my role with the camera in my documentation is to use the camera as a tool to really show the world our greatness, to redefine beauty, to also just inform the world really about who we are and to show this side of what it is to be Black in a way that I think publishing, media, and history books have not shown us.
So when was the first experience that you noticed that what you were seeing about us wasn't accurately captured about us?
Oh, so many things. I think for me, in my childhood, it just was the omission of our greatness and our achievements, and even just looking at the daily papers. Whenever we were on the front page of a newspaper, it was often something, that was criminal or negative, or even how Black women were always like objectified, and even seeing how media just showed just a particularly Eurocentric point of view of what beauty is. And even the people who were authoring these stories of our community. And just even looking at advertising, like how very rarely did I see images of maybe a dark-skinned person or even a Black person representing a product, as well as just the everyday people who come from our communities, who walk with dignity, who are mothers, who are fathers, who are noble citizens, but they were being cast under this umbrella, whether when it's the Black community, that it's, with always these issues, there's always these problems. So I really started to notice that how a lot of who we are was not really being told. And I saw that history just really defined us in this negative way. And I figured that I could counteract this by really just taking the action to document who we are, record the stories of the people, and create this historical document, and as well as to use these platforms and form allegiances with people who share the same kind of visual activism, or who are aware of really how history has been told inaccurately, and get this work out there.
So how old were you when you first picked up a camera? And how did you know to pick up a camera?
I was 25. The first time I ever picked up a camera, I was 25 years old. And it was an exploration. I was always artistic as a child, but I was kind of discouraged when I was young. But at 25.
So when you say discouraged, they were like, don't be chasing art, go get a job. Was it that?
Listen, you know the story. The song does not have a remix, okay? Those are some original lyrics that are going to go on forever. And it was 25 when I first picked up the camera, and really was just trying to find myself in my artistic expression, because I was working in healthcare and was about to pursue nursing school, but I was on the fence about, is this how I want to spend my rest of my life? I started to see some of the politics in healthcare, and it was just a very stringent environment. And in picking up the camera for the first time, I just felt it was therapeutic, it was fun. And then I started to slowly learn that everything I could do with a camera, I started to realize a camera's power. And then I started to see how photography was weaponized against Black and brown people. And then I started paying more attention to like these images which I saw of Africa, and how Africa was always depicted as this place of poverty, of war, of sickness, or safaris. And this I knew to be very different because of how I was raised. And this kind of, if I could give an example, when I went to Ethiopia in 2015, invited by the Addis Photo Fest to show my work on Bedford-Stuyvesant. And when I went there, introducing them to the good people of Bedford-Stuyvesant, me seeing Ethiopia for the first time, and even my first time going to the continent, it was transformative for them just as much as it was for me. And what they said was they never saw the images which I made of Bed-Stuy ever. They couldn't believe that they were contemporary. They were like, Russell, we never see these images of Black America. Like, and then I was like, well, what is the image you think we have of Ethiopia? And they were like, don't say it's the famine. I was like,
Yeah.
and Haile Selassie. And
Yes.
then the light bulb went off about who is controlling and how we have been indoctrinated to really believe that this this conservative point of view and who controls media, history, and if you aren't really intentional or know where to go to find the knowledge, you can really be misled.
Mm.
So this is all part of the awareness. And then I really, Babz, just started to vigorously go to like bookstores and start studying, looking at magazines. And then I started seeing how we are so visually driven and influenced, and how some pictures that I've seen, and I got to give thanks to Roy De Carava, Gordon Parks, these icons in our culture who were brave, who were resilient, as well as who stood for positive images, who stood for dignity. And what their mission was with the camera was to really introduce, again, to the world, a very intimate point of view of how we live as opposed to how we are perceived. And based off of this is what has pretty much set a standard for me to carry on in creating some of the work that you saw maybe in the Washington Post, of some of my work in documenting Black families, whether it's the young man photographs called Stepping Up of Supreme, teaching his stepson how to tie a tie. And this is a rites of passage for a lot of us in our community, where, and the great thing about that is Supreme said to me, you know what, Russ, you show this image to the world. And he said, I want everyone to know that not enough of the world knows how many Black men step up to be dads. And he said, I love being a stepdad. And a stepdad is a man who steps up to be a dad. And that image of tying the tie of this kind of rites of passage into manhood is one. And this is something that the world doesn't see in the humanity of Black men. We don't, promote these images. We don't see these images. And a big part of it is we aren't the authors of our own stories. And the only places where we did see these images, we give a salute to, is the Black Papers, Ebony, and Jet Magazine.
You're absolutely right.
These
that's
that's
why I run a Black paper, because
tell them.
I run a Black paper because I hold our images sacred, and that I know that that we have to counter all the negativity of the images of us in handcuffs, downtrodden, less than, weaker than. You have to do that. So talk to me about your Bed-Stuy photos, because I mean, you could have started anywhere. Are you from New York? Is this your neighborhood?
Yes. So yes, Bed-Stuy is my home. My childhood was in Bushwick, Brooklyn. The old Bushwick, not the hipster Bushwick, to clarify. All right.
What do you got against coffee shops?
I don't have. It's not the coffee shops. This is my issue. No, that's not the issue. Hey, listen, brother, I love Black coffee. Okay, and Black owned Black coffee. So with that, in Bed-Stuy is where I got my first apartment when I was 19, and the place I called home for 18 years. And then I went back to Bushwick to take care of my grandfather for about a good 10 as he was aging and getting sick, and back in Bed-Stuy now. And I chose Bed-Stuy because Bed-Stuy always had this dubious reputation of do or die Bed-Stuy, and how even that was pretty much did that really get, I should say, become popular, was media, newspapers always reporting about the issues. Then we can speak on maybe music, some films, but there is this part of Bed-Stuy, which is this grand Black metropolis. It is this melting pot of just greatness. I mean, we have Lena Horne, Earl Graves, Shirley Chisholm. I mean, Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy, Lenny Kravitz. I mean, I can go on and on. Jackie Robinson lived not too far from where I live now. This is a community of Black excellence. And in walking the streets of my neighborhood, I saw images like Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, who were 52 years married when I photographed them in 2003, coming from the grocery store and in walking. This is Black love, and Mr. Brooks from Houston, Texas, Miss Brooks from Harlem. And here it is. They are pillars of what love and interdependence looks like. And this is an image that the world doesn't get to see of, and even we don't get to see enough of. And in stopping them, I would never have imagined that in documenting them, and just a lot of everyday people that I have, is that how sometimes the photographs I've made is the last photos that were taken of some people. And this photograph of the Brooks, it's a great story, because Miss Brooks, when I asked Mr. Brooks if I could take their photograph, Mrs. Brooks was like, no. and I was not accepting no for answer. And I just said, sir, with all due respect, I'm doing a book on the neighborhood. And he said, you're doing a book? And I said, yes, sir. And he's like, you're doing a book on Bed-Stuy? And I said, yes, sir, I'm doing a photography book on Bed-Stuy, and I would like to photograph you and your wife because it's important that the world see images of you. He said, you could take our picture. Miss Brooks cut her eyes at her husband. He said, straight up, smile for the man. She smiled. I took the photograph. Here it is. Sent them a copy. 3 years later, I get a call from their daughter asking me if I had any more copies of the picture. And I said, sure. And I said, how are they doing? And she said, well, I have to tell you, my father passed away. And she said, and that was the last photo they took together.
Wow.
Ms. Brooks got on the phone and she said to me, young man, I want to apologize to you. She said, I'm sorry. I didn't want my picture taken that day because I didn't think I looked my best. And I was focused on the wrong thing. She said, I should have been more supportive of you. She said, you're doing a positive thing. And she said, I would have never, ever imagined that would have been the last photo of my husband. She said, and that photograph represents what marriage is about. She said, it's trusting your husband or your partner, even when you may not want it. That I'm glad I trusted my husband. And she said to me, good luck. You're going to do well. And she asked me for my address. And a few days later, I got a thank you card with $5 in it.
Oh my God, that is such the Blackest story ever. Because that's how we are.
Black love, Black excellence. And this is the Black community that the world needs to see. That's Bed-Stuy. That's Bed-Stuy. That's who we are. We are great. We are, like what the Washington Post said, everyday resilience.
Yes.
And this is our testimony. This is our life. But again, who the gatekeepers of media publishing are, our greatness has been suppressed. But I am glad to say that, thankful for people like yourself, who have had the courage, who have made a commitment and who have also too saw the value in really just, I think, being a voice of our community and giving a platform for people like myself and many others, as well as to for some of the other institutions that really want to be more progressive and inclusive because they have recognized, okay, what has been omitted and really about how inclusion and this is really important. So I'm here to represent BIPOC community, and I'm here to really tell the stories of our people from now until eternity. It's a responsibility I take very seriously, and that's why I'm a visual activist.
So talk to me about do the same criteria apply when you photograph celebrities and celebrated people? I mean, because you took pictures of President Obama, you took pictures of beloved Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. Like, does the same thought process apply to our upper echelon Black folks? You know, Black folks who've achieved a great deal and are revered, and maybe not revered. Maybe they've, you know, have been challenging as representatives of Black people. Maybe. How do you approach those kinds of subjects and people?
It's with the same humanity, Babz. I am, and I think, and I got to say this, it's the same humanity because, you know, something which is really important is I've studied history. I've studied the psychology, the sociology, really, of photography. Excuse me. And in learning this, and also too, I'm a brother that's well read. So in reading Baldwin, you know what? In reading about Maya Angelou, in reading Miss Toni Morrison, in being, you know what, God bless, hey, Ida B. Wells, bell hooks. I incorporate this all into how can I create these stories that are timeless, that are authentic, and even lyrical. I think about how I want my photographs, first off, is to be an honest representation of who the people are. Because even when I may capture some people and they aren't at their best, it's still with respect and dignity. That's my right. And in photographing celebrities and notables, it is the same approach of honor to show them and even maybe show a side of them that maybe the world doesn't oftentimes get to see, or to do something creatively, or to make sure that if I'm in the presence of an icon, that I'm making something iconic. Like I want them be immortalized forever. And how with this, the camera I see can just, it is a visual language that is international. And when I think about some of the places I've been, and I'm the brother from the block, from around the way. I didn't go to college for this. And just go to France, have my work exhibited on a wide screen in front of 5,000 people, to go to Africa, to teach, and not only just to introduce Bed-Stuy to Ethiopia and the people of South Sudan, it's then to mentor and give them the presence of mind, give them a history lesson on who we are and how Africa and the African diaspora we need to change, and we need to take control of how the world sees us and get schooling them not just on craftsmanship, but also too on the business side of things and how to navigate those treacherous waters. So going to France, going to China, going to Ethiopia, and here it is. I'm seeing my work, and most of all, I'm seeing the love. I'm seeing the love, that how people are challenged to think differently because of my intimate perspective, me being an insider from the community. And this is the key, is how people who have had maybe some good intentions to tell some stories about our community, but they don't do it with a cultural nuance because they haven't walked or lived in our community and haven't walked in our shoes. So Ossie Davis, Ruby D, their walk is, in me, with being close enough to photograph them, I have to represent them well, because what they are doing in their leadership in their position is they are looking to really, I think, create movements. They are part of the activism that they want to see in the world. And even for like a Dapper Dan, it is to create an image of this man who is, who was knocked down, who started something great, and he is the embodiment of really like who we all are. We all have had some hardships, and no matter what, what we go through, and that's what this in America, we all have these obstacles as Black people, and no matter what obstacle comes before us, we never stop.
That's true. I'm with you. So tell me tell me if there's anybody left for you to want to photograph. Like whose story do you want to visually tell? Is there any fantasy folks out there like, you know what, I really like to, dead or alive, doesn't matter. Is there anybody you'd like to get in front of your camera?
Oh, absolutely. So honoring the ancestors, James Baldwin would probably be one of my first, Malcolm X as well.
And they both were well photographed. So what would you like to bring different to these photographs?
With them, I would say it would be, that's a great question. I can't, a part of me, so part of my process, if I was to be able to have been able to photograph them, is I would have studied how many times they have been photographed. And I would have tried to, do something a bit outside of the norm. So to show a part of them that the world doesn't always get to see. So let's say, like, this image of Malcolm, for instance, is how he is perceived to be this very rigid, just hard, just straight, unfiltered, just force of power, is maybe showing a gentler side to him. So I would have probably seen, if I could have maybe photographed him, who knows if it was him and Miss Shabazz, maybe holding hands, him being affectionate. So showing something like that, showing something like him, who knows if he is just even dancing to, it's some Duke Ellington and some Ella Fitzgerald, him and Miss Shabazz like doing like, some swing.
Yes.
So,
you make a good point, because there are pictures of Martin Luther King that we're only now just seeing of him laughing and joking and playing pool and in Jamaica. And because all the pictures we've seen for the most part of our lives is at work marching and arrested and in jail. But there's a whole bunch of pictures of him with his kids and not the staged ones, but playing and laughing and cutting up and that kind of thing.
At ease. And this is the thing. At ease, in where, as a photographer, my job is to first really make this person in front who is trusting me with their image to be comfortable, to be at ease, and to really establish a connection very quickly. And that is a special skill. And with that, for someone like Malcolm, that is something I would have looked to have achieved. I can say probably presently, who would I love to photograph? Michelle Obama. I would love to, listening, if anybody know her, sorority sisters, hello, brothers ready for work. RussellFrederick.com. All right, RussellFrederick.com. Brother's ready for work. So with that, and she is another icon, and what she represents, what she stands for, and really how she uplifts people just by her presence alone. When you see her, you hear her. Listen, I am sure if Michelle Obama was to walk down Nostrand Avenue, the brothers on the corner would take off their hats. Yo, pull up your pants. We got the queen walking down the block. And everybody would fall in line. And when I think about, and again, so someone like her, she just elevates. She just, it brings out the best in you. And all you want to do is just, live up to that standard. And Black excellence is the standard. Black excellence. So she would be one person present. I could also say, who else would I like to photograph now that is living? There are, I'm not really starstruck, or I don't really think too hard about some of these things. Babz, I'm really just focused on creating this visual diary, building a strong legacy, empowering people, challenging the world, see us differently, getting my work in front of people who don't normally see it. So like how recently I started up this positive images campaign, and this was the reason why the Washington Post reached out to do this story. And it was because I wanted to find a way to get my work out in front of more people than what I've already been doing. And how can I get these positive images, like stepping up of Supreme with the tie, of Mr. and Mrs. Brooks. Another one is 3 generations photograph I made of a mother, a daughter, and her granddaughter right before they're going into church. You could go to RussellFrederick.com and you can see some of the work, but this positive images campaign, it is to get the work out in front of a wider audience that doesn't necessarily, I think, intentionally go to the spaces where my work may be seen, or they don't know where to go. So I thought about a way also too for some people who would be interested in maybe, who would love to have a piece of artwork to collect, but it's not within their budget. So how could I create something that was affordable, that everyday people who work can have and will enjoy? And so I decided, thank you so much, Babz. So over here in the Positive Images gift shop, I have tote bags, coffee mugs, throw pillows, as well as laptop cases for some people, to enjoy. And it's something, fresh, but at the same time, as you can see, like on some of this work, which you are scrolling through, showing over here. So for everybody who is listening, Babz right now is scrolling through my Bed-Stuy page. So I have a few portfolios on my website from Bed-Stuy, Ethiopia, a new production. I do a documentary series I'm working on called The Darkroom Masters, as well as some work on Dapper Dan and Hurricane Katrina, where you are seeing my travels from Brooklyn to New Orleans to Ethiopia, even in
I will say this, that you can't really tell the era of these photos. Like they could be anywhere from the 60s to the 50s. I mean, they really are timeless. Like I can't gauge, like, is this now? Was this 20 years ago?
Right.
Was this yesterday? It looks so, I mean, it's just such a striking look. Like you can't really tell when these were taken.
And you know something, Babz, as you're saying that, I think a part of that beauty or how is the black and white film. black and white film has an elegance to it that is timeless. And this is why that has been my choice in medium, really, for a lot of my personal projects. And black and white film has an authenticity, it has a grit, it has an elegance and a timeless appeal that I think color does not. And with that, that's why some of this work that you're looking at over here on my page, it has, I think, stood some of the test of time. So you have the other image over here of Dabney Montgomery, the Tuskegee Airman. Thankful to photograph him. This was a brother I just saw one day on the train, and I gave him my seats, and I said, "Sir, you're a Tuskegee Airman?" And he was, "Yes, sir." I told him to sit down, and I said to him, "I would love to photograph you." And he said, "Surely." And he said, we talked on the phone, and he said, "You know what? Let's schedule a day, and I'm going to bring my Medal of Freedom over to the photo shoot."
I love it.
And then, as you can see, the other images here, like of the Black Panther, this is Professor Janella Johnny. This was at an old Black Panther office over in Bed-Stuy. So this was, again, just capturing this history of our community. The other image above of Dr. Gore with the hoodie. Dr. Gore is the emergency room physician. Also, too, he's a comrade of mine. We are part of this organization called the Kings Against Violence Initiative, which mentors is an intervention program here in Brooklyn. We mentor, with young men and women. And he has his hoodie on in solidarity with Trayvon Martin. And the gentleman in the mural behind him was Yusuf Hawkins, who was killed in a hate crime back in, with the late 80s. So
yes.
All of this, and then even the image, as you see over here, like the gentleman on the right who is incarcerated. This was a friend of mine, Al, and this is a very sensitive image. So here it was. He wasn't at his best when he was locked up, but I was blessed when I went to go see him. I going on the bus, and I mentioned the corrections officer that I had a camera, and like, no cameras are allowed. And I said, "Well, brother, I want to say this to you." I said, "I'm going to see a friend of mine. I would like to photograph him because I don't want him to ever, I want him to see what he looks like behind bars, and that he is never in this position again." And he said, "Okay, I can't guarantee that you're going to get your camera in, but I like what you're doing." I showed him some of my pictures, and he said, "I will talk to my supervisor and see what can happen." Going there to see him, supervisor asked me some questions. He said, "I'll allow you to take one picture." There it is. And this photograph also, too, very symbolic of the injustice in the system, because here was, my friend was locked up for 2 weeks unjustly, and after a review, charges were dropped, but he had 2 jobs. He lost both of his jobs, and then he fell behind on his mortgage, lost his home.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm so glad that you're doing this work. It's beautiful. So what are you working on next? What were you in New Haven? Were you doing something with Yale?
No, so what is coming up is Yale University and I are in discussion for me to come out there and to have a speaking engagement. So this is something that is in the works and very, 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 very exciting.
Well, you have to come. And you got to make that happen. And when you come,
tell them, Babz.
you got to come, and then you got to meet me and my friends, because we'd love to just, like, kick back with you and show you our town a little bit.
Welcome. Listen, only a Metro North away.
I've enjoyed this conversation so much, Russell. You are a phenomenal talent. I love what you're doing. I love what you stand for, and your pictures are absolutely gorgeous. I'm gonna go to the gift shop and see what I could get with my coins.
Fist bumps, giving you a fist bump over here. All right. Gratitude. I want to say amen, amen, ashe, namaste, all of that good energy and good vibes. I appreciate and love what you're doing. Love what you're doing. Sis, I got to give you a salute. And thank you, Wendy Rawlins, for making this happen, making this introduction, and really making this day possible.
Thank you
Babz,
so much.
Blessings to you.
Oh, we'll
And
be in touch. We'll be in touch.
this is Genesis, all right? The first chapter.
Thank you, Wendy Rawlins, for the hookup. And Mr. Frederick, I look forward to seeing you soon. Your work is dynamic, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Babz, for having me again. And thanks for all the listeners out there for tuning in. And lastly, everybody, if you want to see some of the work, go to russellfrederick.com. Type it in on Google. Appreciate the love. Have a great day. All right. Fantastic.
All right, you take good care. I'm a sign out. Harry, thank you for everything.
Thank you, Babz.
I'll see y'all Monday. Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend. Be safe out here in these streets. Still a pandemic. Mask up.
This bell is for Armin Aubrey. This bell is for Armin Aubrey. This bell is for Fernando Castillo. This bell is for Fernando Castillo. This bell is for Michael Brown. This bell is for Michael Brown. This bell is for Tamar Ryan. This bell is for Tamar Ryan. This bell is for Vincent Ramos. This bell is for Vincent Ramos. This bell is for Melissa Ventura. This bell is for Melissa Ventura. Trayvon